Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Madhava Kunjabi Gopijana Malabha Girivardhari Pijana Balabha Girivardhari Gopijana Malabha Girivardhari Pijana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamanatira Vanachadi Jamanatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jayom Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa to see Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Continuing, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 14, the concluding verse of a section of prayers from text 9 through 14. It's a section of prayers where Brahma is praying to Krishna for forgiveness. At the same time, he's revealing his understanding, or he's teaching us that within Krishna is everything, including and specifically the three Purusha avatars. And one of those, minimally, one or two of the Purusha avatars are commonly known also as Narayana, because there's expansions of Narayana. So this is the translation of the verse. Are you not the original Narayana, O Supreme Controller? Since you are the soul, capital S, of every embodied being, Paramatma, and the eternal witness of all created realms, is Mahavishnu. Indeed, Lord Narayana is your expansion, and he is called Narayana because he is the generating source of the primeval water of the universe, Garbhadakshay Vishnu. He is real, not a product of your illusory Maya, defeating Mayavadi philosophers. Jiva Goswami's commentary from Kramasandarbha. We've read the other BBT and other commentaries. This is the final one for this verse. O Lord, of whom Mahavishnu is your expansion. Narayana, Mahavishnu, the source of the other Purushas, is not you, meaning you're the source. Nor is the third Purusha dwelling within all beings, nor the second Purusha, the witness of all the planets. Different functions of the different Vishnus. Mahavishnu, called Narayana because he is the shelter of the Karana ocean, which gives rise to material creation, is simply your expansion. That expansion of yours is real, not illusory. We're going to hear that this Nara has different meanings, and Ayana means unto, or giving the shelter of, or unto Narayana. So Nara can mean, and explanations are given, all living entities, or living entities in a general sense, like Narayana. Nara is the Jiva, and Narayana is the Supreme Person, Narayana. So Nara can mean Jiva or Jivas. Nara can also mean the water that comes from Garbhodakshay Vishnu, the water of Garbhodakshay Vishnu's ocean. Therefore, Narayana. Paragraph. O Krishna, superior to the first Purusha, Adisha, you are the total form of all second and third Purushas. Nara, that's the third meaning. Sometimes in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Advaita Acharya would be referred to as Nara. Other terms also, but meaning he's Mahavishnu. So the first Purusha, or Adisha, is one, and then the universes are innumerable, so there's innumerable second Purushas and innumerable third Purushas. You're the total form of all second and third Purushas, Nara. And the person who causes the first Purusha to function, Ayana. So there's another meaning of Narayana. So he's saying you're not the Narayana that everyone thinks of. You're the total form as Mahavishnu. You are the total form of all second and third Purushas, Nara. And the person who causes the first Purusha to function, Ayana. The third Purusha is situated in all beings. Sarva Dehinam Atma. That's the Sanskrit of the verse. The second Purusha is situated within the universal shell. Parentheses, Lokashakshi. So, if Snehavali sent her this reference because she was asking about several times. Loka Shakshi, it's a name of the personality of Godhead. There's a nice devotee in China, Tamal Krishna Maharaj's disciple, named Lokashakshi, nice devotee. And what does it mean? Loka Shakshi. So in several places, Lokashakshi is referenced as the third Purusha, because we discussed this last night. The abode of Kshirodakshay Vishnu is a spiritual planet within this universe, known as Svetadweep, Dhruvaloka, Pole Star, and Western astronomy is Polaris. It's a spiritual planet within this universe where Kshirodakshay Vishnu resides, where the demigods go when they have a problem, and they offer prayers, Purusha Sukta prayers to the Lord, present their problem, seek his shelter and assistance to resolve the problem, because he's their protector. They're deriving powers from him. They're helping to maintain the universe on behalf of him, the maintainer. And when they need protection, they go to him because he's the protector. So that's Kshirodakshay Vishnu is then called Lokashakshi. He is the witness, or Shakshi means to see or witness, like Shakshi Gopal, witness Gopal. He is the witness of everything within the universe because he's within the universe. So Snehavali's question was, please explain the connection between Lokashakshi in the third Purusha and Lokashakshi in the second Purusha. It sounds like they're quite similar. Questions clear? So, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, chapter 2, text 52. That's the whole section. There's some 25, 30 verses where this one verse that we're discussing this morning is explained in lots of detail by Krishnadas Kaviraj. Adi Leela chapter 2, starting from around 30-something, running for 25, 30 verses. So this is text 52, purport. These three Purushas, who lie in the Karana, Garbha, and Shira oceans respectively, are the supersoul of everything that be. So supersoul, very similar to Antaryami, very similar to Loka, Shakshi. Karanadakshayi Vishnu is the supersoul of the collective universes. Garbhodakshayi Vishnu is the supersoul of the collective living beings. And Kshirodakshayi Vishnu is the supersoul of all individual living entities. You put the two together and the all living entities makes the collective living beings. So it looks like it's a duplicate or an overlap or something like that. So her question was, what's Lokashakshi mean? Because consistently Lokashakshi, well, in many cases Lokashakshi is referred to as a function of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. I said Kshirodakshay Vishnu, but it's Garbho. But there's an overlap. There's per living, so my answer was, it's just a question of scale. One living being, and then all living beings, and then collective living beings. So the scale is per living being, and the scale is all living beings. But they have password to share information between one another. What Kshirodakshay Vishnu picks up is in his data bank, he just transports quickly over to Garbhodakshay Vishnu. Actually, it's one entity. That was the point. And the scale is indicating the function. So we heard this yesterday evening. I don't mind going over it again. But in another verse from this section, Adi Leela, chapter 2, the indication is these different nomenclatures are upadhis. Now we normally, in the Hare Krishna movement, we think of upadhis as something that we aren't. Like, I'm American, or someone is Chinese, or someone is Russian, or someone is African, or someone is black, or someone is white, or someone is man or woman, or whatever it is. And those are upadhis because that's not who we are. It's just a designation that helps us, speak of someone or think of ourselves, but we should understand sarva upadhi vanir muktam. That's not who we are. That's how we're used to thinking what upadhi means. But upadhi is used outside of ISKCON in our Vedic literature in many ways. In many ways. One of those ways is to say that all there is Brahman, and anything other than thinking Brahman is an upadhi. Anything at all. Like soul, supreme soul, those are upadhis. All there is Brahman. And you just superimpose some upadhi on us and call us a jiva. That's an upadhi. Vishnu is an upadhi. They're all because all there is Brahman. That's how they use it. In Mayavadis. So it is a designation, this Vishnu, that Vishnu, and the essence is not this function, that function. The essence, they perform a function for the purpose of creation as expansions from the personality of Godhead in a certain category, kala. And their essence is creation. The function of creation means different features. Okay, so now back to Jiva Goswami's commentary from Krama Sandarbha. In the verse, we find the Sanskrit Nara Bhu Jala Yanat. We know what Jala is. It's water. And Nara Bhu means, quote, from the shelter of the Karna ocean, Jala, which generates Mahatattva and other elements. Nara Bhu meaning arising from Vishnu. So this is Mahavishnu, this phrase Nara Bhu Jalayanat, from the shelter of the Karna ocean, which generates Mahatattva and other elements. And that Karna ocean is Narabhu, arising from Vishnu, and all of the elements and all of the living entities and everything that to assist in the creation. Last paragraph. This is interesting. That ocean is also called Nara, or related to Vishnu. Thus, Narayana means the shelter of Nara, parentheses, the causal ocean. That first Purusha is certainly not you. Narayana is your Anga. You are the Angi, the source of these expansions. So we could, one morning, read the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita section, because it takes it even further than this. At least my understanding is the scriptural foundation or the authority for what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami writes is from the commentaries of Jiva and Sanatana Goswami, because Krishnadas Kaviraj was a contemporary, a little bit younger, but contemporary of Jiva, and Jiva received knowledge from Rupa Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami and all the Gopal Bhatta Goswami. He received their understandings of Vaishnava teachings from them, and he wrote them. And Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami heard from them, heard from Jiva, who had heard from them. So their understandings are quite similar. The way of expressing those understandings has some variety to it, which is natural. But the extensive description found in Adi Leela chapter 2 is just a mirror reflection, or quite very much resembles these understandings. From this one verse, it's really unpacked a lot. Just to repeat, he's saying, Brahma is saying, you are the original Narayana, but not the Narayana Mahavishnu. You are and you're not. That's a Chintabheda Tattva. That is, he saw, going back to chapter 12, he saw all the Narayanas and all the energies and all the universes, multiple, so many, how you see so many universes. But anyway, that's what he saw. And now he's breaking it down. So you are Mahavishnu, but you're not Mahavishnu, because you're the source of Mahavishnu. You are Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, therefore you're my mother and father, because I was within your body like the child is within the body of the mother. And when the child in the womb of the mother is kicking, the mother doesn't take offense, so I also did some mischief. Please forgive me, like a mother that feels a child kicking within her womb. I'm just childish and foolish, and please forgive me. So you're my mother. You're my father. You're Mahavishnu. You, who from the pores of your body, many, many, many universes are streaming out as you exhale. And I'm in one of those universes, building a universe and thinking, wow, how great I am, but how tiny I am. In my tininess, I'm looking to your greatness. Please forgive me. Your mercy is very great. Please extend your mercy. And then the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. So he is and is not, because he's the original source. That's like a nice explanation of the Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam verse, which we discussed yesterday evening. Okay, so now we're going to read text 15. I'm just going to read the translation in BBT commentary. My dear Lord, if your transcendental body, which shelters the entire universe, is actually lying upon the water, then why you are not seen by me when I searched for you? And why, though I could not envision you properly within my heart, did you then suddenly reveal yourself? Purport. Lord Brahma here refers to his experience at the dawn of cosmic creation. As described in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma took birth on the seat of a giant lotus whose stem emanated from the navel of Narayana. Brahma was bewildered as to his whereabouts, function, and identity, and therefore he tried to trace out the source of the lotus stem, searching for clear information. Unable to find the personality of God, to return to his seat and engage in severe austerities, having been ordered to do so by the transcendental voice of the Lord, who could be heard but not seen. After a long meditation, Brahma saw the Lord, but then again lost sight of him. Thus Brahma concludes that the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead is not material, but rather an eternal spiritual form endowed with inconceivable mystic potencies. In other words, Lord Brahma should not have challenged the personality of Godhead, the Lord of all mystic power. So I'm going to have to pause for just a moment, run to the bathroom, and come right back, if that's okay. But I really don't have a choice. There was a question from yesterday evening that I didn't receive from Parma Karuna. So he's probably going to want to ask that question again this morning. But it was a really involved question, and I'd like to look at it before I try to answer a really involved question. So is there anyone else who would like to discuss something from this section of the Bhagavatam?
Marge, stepping back from all this very mind-boggling for me details in Lord Brahma's prayers, we see that he has such erudite knowledge. You know, he's expressing it after, having offended Krishna. So even though he has such erudite knowledge, he pushes his curiosity to a point of offensiveness. Now,
it's not that he extended his curiosity to the point of offensiveness. His curiosity took a wrong turn. I'll explain. Is it important, the extent? Okay. Vishwanath, there's a wonderful description somewhere. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, I forget the source. Yeah, I remember the source. He read in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Gopal mantra or Kam Gayatri mantra has 23 and a half syllables, something like that. That he never heard of a half a syllable, so he searched and he couldn't find it. He decided, if I can't understand this is, inquisitiveness, then how am I going to achieve the goal of life? Better that I just give up my life. You know the story. So he sat by the side of Radhakund and was fasting until death, because he couldn't understand what half a syllable was. Radharani appeared as he dozed off in his vision and instructed him, don't do this. Krishnadas Kaviraj found this particular rule in a dictionary named such and such. It's in the library. Go there in the morning and you'll find it. And thank you for your enthusiasm to understand Krishnadas Kaviraj. But he didn't go in a defensive direction. But then she instructed him, you write commentary on this Gayatri mantra. And so he did, under the instruction of Radharani to do so. So the curiosity that amplifies isn't necessarily bad. It wasn't a speculative, but a curiosity that amplified. It just took a wrong turn. Specifically, testing the extent of Krishna's mystic powers by exercising his to see what Krishna would do, challenging him. That was the difficulty, not the inquisitiveness. Does that answer your question? More?
So we obviously, don't have any powers close to Lord Brahma's from any stretch of imagination. Yet we may have curiosity, and in fact, we're encouraged to be independently thoughtful. Tadvidhi Pranipatina. So our entire process is one of question and answer. Our two most important scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, are in that format.
Yes.
So we have to be, I'm wondering how to be very careful in that exercise of curiosity and independently.
Yeah. The line to not cross, inquisitiveness is good, not only good, it's encouraged. Prabhupada would say again and again, try to understand. So there's many ways that it's encouraged. As you said, all of the Vedas are resting upon this question-answer format. So the inquisitive spirit, Brahma Jigyasa, is essential, not optional. Because if one doesn't have an inquisitive spirit and one receives the sound vibration of knowledge, it's not going to go in. So the inquisitiveness is the opening of the heart, so it can go in. But then the opening of the heart must not enter into a challenging mood. Tadvidhi pranipatena, that preceding prashna. Then you can go in. Or saying the same thing, the strength of one's, we said it yesterday, but the strength of one's bhakti will result in proportionate degrees of awakening of knowledge from within. So we should hear and inquire with the spirit of bhakti, not the spirit of, I want information. I want bhakti. Yeah. It's small, but it's big. It's subtle, but it's very significant. Bhakti means to please Krishna. It's all about pleasing Krishna. And to please Krishna is to be very inspired in serving Krishna, not just to know him. So, okay, now I know him, now what's next? So, anything else? Yes, you got your question from yesterday evening. Eternal time? Eternal time?
Eternal time, Guru Maharaj, yes. Also related to Aham Sarvasya Prabhu verse yesterday you in Guru Maharaj. The extended energies of Krishna, internal, marginal, and external, where Krishna mentions in external, I am not directly involved into it.
I'm not what?
I'm not directly involved into it yet. These are my external energies.
I'm not what?
Directly involved into it.
Directly involved in what?
The external energy.
He's not directly involved, that's correct.
So, my contemplation recently has been going, I as a Tatasa Lakshana, what was the cause for me being Krishna's expansion as me as a part and parcel in terms of Tatasa Lakshana?
You're using the word Lakshana. Do you mean Tatasta Shakti?
Yes, Guru Maharaj.
Not Tatasta Lakshana.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Okay, so do it again. Say it again slowly.
Sure.
Now, if you speed up and during a certain section, you might lose me at the curve. So
sure.
Go slowly.
So what was the reason me falling in the category of Tatasa Shakti?
That's just who you are. You want to know why you are who you are. Why am I Tatasta Lakshana? What's the reason that Krishna expanded me as Tatasta Shakti? What was in Krishna's hand when he expanded? First of all, it's not once upon a time you weren't, and then Krishna looked at his watch and said, guess what? It's time to expand some jivas. And so, boom, there goes some jivas. It's just, that's your eternal position. There's not a reason behind it. You know, why is Krishna God? Because he's God. Why is he the source of everything? Because he's the source of everything. Why are you in this category? Because that's your position in relation to that which is the source of everything. There's no why about it. You got a puzzled look on your forehead, but I'm sorry. It's just Krishna is made up of many things, and one of those many things is tiny living entities, and we're part of that Krishna-ness that has tiny living entities. That's just who we are. Okay, I'm not going to go with it more.
I was thinking on the topic of inquisitiveness, and recently in a discussion with one of the devotees, we were discussing, I've been hearing for multiple years, but then I don't have a question.
You don't what? Someone sneezed.
I don't have a question.
You don't have a question?
That was the discussion, that although we hear, but then we don't have a question. And I was thinking, when we don't process things, then
to understand what's being said and what's my conception, there is a difference, is also difficult to get to. And
this is really subtle. Let me say back what I think you said. It's probably not what you said. First is, somebody's hearing and no questions are coming. So the next thing you said is, we already have a conception. Most likely what we're hearing is different than that conception. So if we don't have a question about how does my conception mesh with what I just heard, then we're not hearing.
okay.
That's not what you're saying.
So that's kind of a passive hearing?
That kind of a packaging?
Passive?
Passiveness, okay.
Is that a kind of a passive hearing where we actually hear, but we are not processing what we hear?
We're not processing what we hear. Well, it's probably just not hearing. You know, the hearing in the real sense of hearing. I mean, some sound vibration is going in and something is registering in the C fibers. I'm hearing, but not hearing.
And I was thinking the reason could be there's so much inside the emotions, or there's so much clutter inside that
So
the
much
mind...
struggle inside?
Clutter?
Clutter.
Inside that the sound vibration is not cutting through that and entering into the heart.
You're saying the same thing I'm saying. The clutter is blocking the hearing. Although if you were to test somebody with an auditory system in a lab, they're hearing, but they're not hearing. They're not hearing in a deeper sense of hearing because of the clutter.
So how to get there from, say, where
Chaito Darpana Marjanam, with the right mood, the mood of bhakti. As bhakti awakens, then the ability to hear with the spiritual ear, we'll use that phrase, Bhakti Siddhanta's phrase, with the spiritual ear, becomes possible. But it takes cleansing. So it takes effort and mercy, and then the cleansing goes on. So the mercy is the sound, and the effort is from our side.
Thank you.
With an inquisitive spirit, wanting to know, wanting to understand in a devotional way. Yes.
Continuing with this discussion, I find that there are...
Our point or your point?
Both.
Both.
I find that there are topics that are easier for me to engage with. And so, things are going in, and there's processing, there's inquisitiveness and asking questions. And then there are other things that are just, I feel like this real mental block.
But you're human. Welcome. So now that's an observation. What to do? You continue hearing both. You may be inclined to hear more of this, and less inclined to hear that. But I mentioned this yesterday evening, and I was thinking about it some more on the way back. This topic of creation, it makes up a big part of the Bhagavatam. It's 2 of the 10, Sarga Visarga. It's a big part of the Bhagavatam. And it comes again, and it comes again, and it comes again. And here it is in the 10th canto. It's coming again. It must be important. It must be important. And our acharyas spend a lot of time. So they're not like gyanis. They're Shuddha Bhaktas. And they're spending time on it, and they're going and drilling down in detail and detail and detail. Like, wow, must be important. The same time, it's related, similar but different, and that's Vedic cosmology. Or Varnashram. Like, who understands Vedic cosmology? And then to understand Vedic cosmology and modern cosmology, and how do the two intersect? Because that's what TOVP is up to. It's not just, excuse me, you hit my button, but Antardweep has a really fantastic grasp of Vedic cosmology. It's not like he has the end-all be-all. So I've had discussions with Dhruta Karma about this. Dhruta Karma says, I'm a student of Sataputta. Sataputta, because he started his efforts working with Sataputta on this Forbidden Archaeology book. They were co-authors. Dhruta Karma did all the research and then did the writing, and he was just being guided by Sataputta. So, I'm Sataputta's student. Sataputta sees like this, and somebody else sees like that, and somebody else sees like that. And he was making no judgments. Like, which is... And his answer was, in the end, over time, some view will prevail. And it could be there's just different ways of looking at the same thing. But, the universal form, the one class that I did watch of Dhruta Karma on cosmology, it's just he presented to the BI, and it's very short and simple. Vedic cosmology is the universal form. That's where it begins, it's in the middle, it's in the end. Shukadeva Goswami says, I'm going to describe the universal form. And then he says, I described the universal form. Now, the universal form of the 5th canto is Vedic cosmology. And it's not exactly what we see Mother Yasoda seeing. It's not exactly what Arjuna saw, and it's not exactly what's in the first chapter of Canto 2. And it's not exactly what Duryodhana saw, the partial. But it's the universal form. And there's different ways of looking at the same thing. And then there's different ways of looking at the 5th canto. It's quite puzzling. Is it important? It must be important. Prabhupada wanted, and I feel, as members of ISKCON, millions of dollars are being spent to build this temple, and it's being called a very unique name. Whoever called the temple a planetarium, Temple of Vedic, and so there was a purpose behind it. So how much do we understand what's going in that Temple of Vedic planetarium? If people go to see it and they say, what's that? We go, duh. I don't understand it either, but it's really nice, isn't it? And then there's going to be puffy wuffies that go with their swords and daggers and guns and challenging. So who's going to answer those challenges? So there are some devotees that are interested in so, pardon me, there's a new entity in Gainesville, Florida, a branch of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, that they just bought a house. Sridhananda Maharaj bought what used to be the president of the university's house. It's like a big mansion, and that's going to be the headquarters of that BI branch. And they just had a symposium on Vedic cosmology, and they're going to do part 2 very soon or sometime. And it's people doing what academic people do. They present papers with this perspective, that perspective, another perspective. And I'm sure they're going to disagree. Let's say, I'm sure they're not going to agree, but they're presenting perspectives. So who's got the right perspective? We're these, you got to have, if it's this, then it's not that. If it's that, then it's not this, people. We're used to that in our tradition. And now we're getting this opportunity to be challenged. So back to your question. You may have propensity more like this. Fantastic. Do you know what the people that really like music know about music? Do you know about expression of Vedic architecture like some people know about Vedic art? But take anything that's part of the Vedas. There's no limit to any part of the Vedas because they're unlimited. You can just keep going and going and going. But the real value of going is to connect with Krishna, not just to become knowledgeable in a certain field or acclimated. So there is going to be, this is the psychophysical nature question again, from yesterday evening and from Naperville. We have our nature. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not try to blot it out, just become a smoothie or something. Homogenize, no psychophysical nature. Rise above your physical nature and it evaporates. That's not our goal. Is to spiritualize all of that. And so there are people that are inquisitive to understand this topic. And for some people it's like, I'm interested over here. But so what do we do with a topic that doesn't hold our interest as much? Especially if it's emphasized again and again. It tells us it's important, and we should pay attention, and I don't understand it, and I'm not really attracted to it either, but it's important. So let me hear with the view that let my bhakti be increased, that my contaminations be released, so that I can hear something instead of, I'm not attracted. I've got this wall between me and that subject matter. That's my advice. I'm not so attracted to a certain Jitendriya.
Yeah, I was just thinking that we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So until we become purified, then we won't be able to see things as they are.
That's right. That's right. Very good. Okay, we're going to get our translator ready.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Maharaj. And I was thinking that regarding to the Stira Mataji's question, like about mind.
The mind.
Yes, and in this Sankhya philosophy, Kapil Dev has explained very vividly about mind, that I am confused. I have a burning question. I want to clarify with you. This thing is, mind is categorized under the false ego as mode of goodness, under the mode of goodness, and pranam is this intelligence is categorized under the mode of passion. So how is that, please, means mind, how it became under the mode of goodness?
How to move the mind from passion to goodness mode?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There's the Vasudev state. Vasudev state invites Vasudev. That's so false ego in contact with the mode of goodness creates the mind in the Vasudeva state. And in order to facilitate material stuff, enjoyment, you need intelligence. That's material intelligence. That's passion. False ego in contact with the mode of passion produces material intelligence. How to figure out how to get senses combined with hooked up with sense objects in such a way it makes happiness. That's a covering of the soul. So the best is the mind, manmana. Come to the Vasudeva state. Now the mind can certainly be polluted, but in the original state the mind comes first, even before intelligence, and sequentially. Okay. How about online? There's one online. We're going to have Acharya Nishta do the online questions.
To Mataji, a curiosity question. Are the number of souls that exist are limited, or Krishna may be creating more and more souls as time passes by?
Is that you or your daughter asking the question? We don't know. Their souls have never come into being. In the future, they will not come into being. Souls are eternal. And they're finite. Although too many to count. The word in Sanskrit is asankhita. Krishna Archana, anything? Yes? Over here.
John Paswani, the close examination that Lord Brahma is making of the circumstance in which he was born from that lotus.
Yeah.
It was striking me that it's very much connected to this realization that he's having, a much deeper realization that Krishna is the source of Lord Narayan. So I've been seeing it a lot from that perspective as you've been talking, that Lord Brahma's going through all these details has to do with this newfound understanding of Krishna being the source. And I think in text 15, where he's actually asking this question, yes.
Why couldn't I see you?
That's right, yes. So it seems to really augment this realization that he's now having of Krishna's position.
Yes, yes.
So I guess I'm commenting because I've just been processing it.
There's, using how Prabhupada defines these terms, jnana and vijnana. Jnana is theoretical, and vijnana is experiential. There was some discussion yesterday about the best means of knowledge is through hearing, and Brahma, at least within his heart, he heard, but then, and he expressed it correctly in the form of the Vedas. He manifested the Vedas. But now, by Krishna's mercy, he's getting direct experience. It's not to say what Brahma's, the Vedas are not Vijnana, but it's like superlative Vijnana or something like that. It reminds me this, this he's realizing. And has questions like, how come I couldn't see you, but I could see you now? Going back to the very first verse of this chapter, Brahma says, you've shown me very special mercy. My question, my curiosity has been completely satisfied. There's no limit to your powers. And B, not only that, you showed me this form of yours. But he was seeing the form before this pastime of Brahma Vimohan Leela. But he was seeing but not seeing. It's a little bit like Stira's question. He saw, but he didn't see in the same way that he saw later. You've shown me mercy by showing me this form. I mean, he could have just, descended in a swan carrier and seen Krishna going, wow, I'm very fortunate. But his seeing was more of a realized seeing now. And that's also leading to questions, like how come I couldn't see you before? And his statement, particularly our acharyas describe, he wants to attain Krishna. Attain Krishna means what? Because he's a devotee, very trusted devotee. He's received all the Vedas from Krishna within his heart. He's very special. But he wants more than that. He wants this love that the residents of Vrindavan have for him. That comes later in the prayers. So he's getting this realization of Krishna and the limitation of his position in relation to Krishna, and especially not really understanding who Krishna is. So his curiosity is still there. How come I couldn't see you? But it's not offensive. It's just asking. He could have descended in a swan carrier and said, Krishna, I just saw this pastime. Could you illumine my heart? Is there a limit to your mystic powers or your potencies? He could have done it, any number of different ways. He did it the way that he did it, which was offensive. One of the main potencies in the up to chapter whatever it is, when Krishna goes with the chariot of Akrura to Mathura, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan teach us again and again and again and again the very, very, very special quality of love of the residents of Vrindavan. They are most exalted. So persons that visit, Brahma visits, Narada visits, Akrura visits, Uddhava visits, and where their experience is, wow. So Brahma's getting a little bit of that wow. That it's not like he didn't know before, but he's experiencing it. Not like Narada didn't know it before, but he's experiencing it. We're getting an opportunity through hearing, and we should be actually eager to experience it. Through the medium, Stira's gone, through the medium of hearing. And then through that medium of hearing, want to attain exactly what Brahma wants, exactly what we should want. And is it sufficient just to hear? Yes and no, because the hearing is not different than the person. But it's like Gopakumar. It's beautiful. He was able to see Madan Gopal in Tapaloka, but it just wasn't the same. He saw, He felt, but it wasn't the same. And then he went to Dwarka, and it just wasn't the same. He went to Ayodhya, it wasn't the same. Ram said, your eagerness to be with Madan Gopal. So that's our teaching from Sanatana Goswami and the Bhagavatam directly. It's just excavating that jewel, the most precious jewel of Braja Prem, and the means to get there. The means to get there. That's text 3 of his prayer. Okay. Continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.